Have you ever wondered if life is nothing more than an opportunity to write your story?
Today I'm in Maui, and I love it here. I love Hawaii, but my favorite island is Maui. I love the beautiful blue ocean. I love the people. I love the laid-back atmosphere. It's a wonderful place. And one of my favorite things are the ancient stories. As a matter of fact, you may or may not know, but hula quite often is a story in motion. I've been told that I'm a really good storyteller, and I kind of take pride in that, and that's a trait that I got from my father. My father told amazing stories. People hung on his every word, and I didn't realize how I had that trait inside me until my dad passed away. So a few months ago, I was on a flight. I got onto the plane. I walked into the row. In our history of the company, he's like, "What?" I said, "Yes." I said, "You're an internet superstar." He said, "What are you doing?" So I was designing clothing for music groups. Ever got caught doing this again, I would go to jail for 1 year. Everybody in the gym starts applauding. You guys like that one? I told you that'd be your favorite. It'll be the one thing I remember a decade from now will be that moment with him. And it was a wild ride. It was really quite incredible. It played on every radio station in every country, every single minute of the day. That guy is so freaking cool. Man. Most of the stories I tell are entrepreneur stories. I have the privilege of traveling all over the globe, and I get to hang out with entrepreneurs. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, and I bet that you have an interesting story too. Matter of fact, I've never been an entrepreneur that doesn't have an interesting story. And the one thing that I've noticed is that most entrepreneur stories, they have a pattern.
From their decision to become an entrepreneur, to their trials and tribulations, to their ups and downs, to their success. But what's often more interesting than the story they've lived is the story they keep telling themselves. Some entrepreneurs get stuck in their stories of the past and allow their past story to define them and limit them and continue to live into that very same story. Other entrepreneurs choose to learn from their past story, but write a brand new story for their future.
I remember one of my favorite stories of my dad. It was when I got my first car, and I remember that it was a bit of a fixer-upper, and I needed new brake pads. So I went to Sears, and I went to get new brake pads, and they put on the pads. I remember I was driving home, and I couldn't put the car into third gear. It wouldn't go into third gear. Now, obviously, they did something to screw up my car. I mean, how else? I mean, it was working fine before I took the car in. So I remember I drove the car home all the way in third gear, and I got home and I called my dad. I said, "Yeah, they must have screwed up the car. I wasn't having the issue before." He said, "You take it back in there and you have them fix it." And of course I called him at work. He wasn't home yet. He said, "You take it back in and get it fixed." I said, "Okay, I will." So I was embarrassed. I was a kid. I took it back and I told them that, "Hey, you know, obviously you messed up." They're like, "Oh, there's no way we could have done that. We worked on the brakes. We couldn't have messed up your clutch." And I ended up speaking to the manager, and the manager says the same thing. They made me sit there for hours. Finally, they lift up the car, and they look up into the car, and he says, "Oh my gosh," and he lowers the car, and they pull out a can of brake fluid that some idiot mechanic left inside the engine, and I couldn't put it into third gear. And so I went home, I told my dad the story, and he was pissed. He was furious that they made me sit there for hours. He made me get back in the car with him. We drove back, we found the manager, and he made the manager write a letter of apology to me. Now I have to tell you, I was completely embarrassed. But you know what, I was so proud of my dad in that moment. And that's when my dad told me that you have to stick to your guns. You have to stand up for what you believe in. And I never forgot that lesson. And that was just one of the many great lessons my dad shared with me. Okay, so here's a few tips for creating and collecting stories.
I use my audio recorder on my phone, and I pull it out all the time, and I record the stories or the highlights or some triggers, and sometimes I just use Evernote or something similar just to keep notes of the stories, so then I have them. You don't need to learn a story word for word, you just need the essence in the beginning, the middle, the end. And most important thing is to get the value and the moral of the story across to your listener.
I especially love the, one more time.